Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheilla with her croaky voice again. Our story today is called The Experiment. Well, it took place a long time ago in a girls' school. Well, that morning before school started, the girls were all congregated around in a circle. And Marcia, she said, "I don't understand why Miss Capron has to be so mean and grouchy and cross. She's just awful all the time. I think that we should do an experiment. I think we should take our slates. I know what we should do. We should take our chalk, and every time she's grouchy or she frowns or she does something mean, like making one of us stand in the corner, just because, you know, we may not be perfect, but we shouldn't be made to do all this stuff just because she's grouchy." All the other girls listened, and Lottie said, "You're right. I didn't like standing in the corner just because I had to ask somebody a question." Well, then another girl spoke up. "Yeah, I know. She made me write my spelling 50 times. She's mean." Sia said again, "Let's just put marks on our slates every time she does these bad things." Teacher, she came to the door, and in those days they had a bell, and she rang the bell. So they all came in, but they were already grouchy. They thought, let's kind of make it worse and see how she acts. When the teacher greeted them, she was thinking about something else because she had a horrible headache. Do you ever think that maybe your teachers can have a headache? How good do you feel when you have a headache? But she was trying to be nice, so she smiled at them. But then it got hurting worse. And pretty soon, she wasn't smiling hardly at all. The girls started taking their chalks and writing on their little slates. Every time the teacher did something grouchy, one of the girls remembered she had something she shouldn't have had in her little bag inside her desk. Well, she knew a man that chewed snuff. Well, snuff, it's a kind of tobacco that instead of smoking, you put it inside your mouth and you chew on it. Well, she thought it would be fun to take it out and pass it to each girl, and they could smell it. Well, snuff, tobacco of any kind, if you smell it, it makes you start sneezing. Pretty soon, the whole classroom was and it struck the girls funny. One of them giggled, and then another one giggled, and another one giggled, until the whole classroom was laughing right out loud. And poor Miss Capron, she said, "I don't know what's going on with you guys today, but something is. Now, you need to settle down so we can have class." So the teacher started over again. It was the time in the day when she had different students come up to recite. When one got up there, all the other girls started doing other things. They made little bitty, we used to call them spitballs, and then they would fling them out and they would hit people when they were trying to study. And the teacher said, "Stop this. You know that's against the rules. You've never acted like this before." Well, then one of the girls, she looked down, the instigator of all of this. She looked down at her slate, and it was clear, full of little marks of when the teacher had scolded them, or been grouchy, or been cross, or had not smiled and frowned. So, she's in a whisper, she said, "It's no use. My slate is clear full." And she took her slate and she dropped it, clunk, on the floor. And Lottie, she looked over. She thought that was kind of a fun thing to do. She picked up her slate and she dropped it, clunk. Pretty soon, all the girls were dropping their slates. And Miss Capron, she went, "Stop this. I don't know what kind of mischief has gotten into all of you today, but something has. I cannot teach you, and you cannot learn anything while you're acting like this. So I'm gonna send you outside so you can run around and get rid of whatever this is that's causing all this. I'm gonna give you 15 minutes. I'm gonna ring the bell again, and I expect that you'll sit down and do your lessons quietly." Well, it didn't do any good. The girls went outside and they went, "Did you see how mean she was? Just because we were having a little fun." And then Marcia said again, "Here's your ringleader again." She said, "I think we should be twice as bad when we go back in. So she'll have to dismiss us to send us home. And instead of going home, we'll go down to the falls and play in the water the rest of the day." Well, the girls said, "We think maybe that's a really good idea." But then Mary appeared. Well, Mary, she was the oldest girl that went to that school. And she was really good to the younger students. She helped them when they got stuck on their problems. She helped them pick topics to write their papers on. And she was always kind. And she helped them when they got into trouble. Well, she came into the play area. First of all, it wasn't recess time, and the girls were all to everybody. And Mary said, "Just a minute. What's going on here?" Well, now Mary hadn't been to school the first part of the day, and now she was back. And the girls said, "Miss Capron is just awful. She never smiles. She grouches all the time. She frowns at us and grumps at us. We were just trying to have some fun, and she said to come out here and get rid of our mischief." And Mary said, What kind of mischief? And Marcia said, Well, we decided, all of us, that we would mark on our slates every time teacher frowned or was grouchy or didn't smile or told us to be good or stood us in the corner. We did that. Then we did a bunch of other things. And we think because she's so mean, we should be just worse all afternoon. It'll just teach her right. It's her fault. Mary, she looked at him and she said, I'd like to tell you a little story if you guys don't mind. Well, as I said, they all liked Mary. So Mary said, there was a lady and she had a brand new daughter-in-law. And she watched this new daughter-in-law. It seemed like to the new mother-in-law that the daughter-in-law couldn't do anything right. She couldn't cook right. She didn't clean the way she did. She just made one mistake after the other. And she was grouchy. She just wasn't being a good daughter-in-law. The lady went out to all her friends and she told her about this horrible, horrible daughter-in-law she had. And she listed off all of the daughter-in-law's faults. But one of the ladies, after she'd heard all of this, went to the lady and she said, I'm sure you must be right that your daughter-in-law has a lot of faults. And she may be the worst person around. But, I just have a little bitty suggestion. Maybe for the next week or so, when you see her, look and see and write down any good things she does. And just kind of to see, she may be so bad that she never does any good things and never smiles or is happy. But maybe you could at least try it. I'm not saying that she's really good. I'm just saying maybe you should try it. Well, the lady, she finally agreed she would try to look and see if this daughter-in-law did anything good at all. And before the week was over, she went back to the lady that had made the suggestion to her. And she said, My daughter-in-law is a treasure. You ought to see all the wonderful things and the good things she does for my son and for her family. And all the good things she can cook that I never even noticed she did because I was so busy looking for her faults. Thank you for the suggestion. And then Mary turned to all those girls and she said, I'm just going to make a suggestion. What about if this afternoon we were all good in class, but we took our slates and we put a mark on it every time the teacher smiled or did something pleasant or nice or praised us or thanked us, just to see if she just has faults You guys may be right, but let's see. The girls agreed to be as good as gold that afternoon, to give the teacher an opportunity to show her real self. The teacher was afraid. She thought to herself, what am I going to do if they act like that when they come back in? But she told them 15 minutes. So at the end of the 15 minutes, she went to the door. Yeah. They sat in their seats. They took out their books. They started doing their math. The people that had to do their recitation did it quietly and carefully. Every once in a while, one of the girls would look up at Mrs. Capron and she would smile at her, and then she would go back to writing her assignments again. It wasn't long till Miss Capron was grinning and smiling at the students, and she was praising them for their work, coming around looking to see how much they'd got done, and she'd reach out and go, you're doing a wonderful job on this. I can't see where you've made any mistakes. I'm proud of you. Well, every time she said one of those things, after she walked off somewhere else, the teacher did, the girl would write on her slate another mark. And the teacher, her headache wasn't so bad now. And she thought, maybe I was the one at fault making them be bad because I might have been grouchy or something. Oh dear. But then the whole rest of the afternoon went on very pleasantly. Marcia, the head of making the kids do all the marking and all the bad things, she picked up her slate and she wrote across it, smiles all the time. And she held it up for all the other students to see. And all the students smiled at the teacher. Well, when it came time for the teacher to dismiss class, this is what she said. Girls, I'm sorry. I think that I was at fault this morning, and that because I had a horrible headache, didn't treat you right, and I might have been impatient with you. I'm so sorry. The girls all went, oh no, it wasn't your fault. It was us. And they said, you don't have to apologize to us. We should apologize to you. The littlest girl in the class, whose name was Lottie, she said, oh, teacher. And she spilled out everything that had happened, how Marcia had talked to them all, and they had agreed to write little marks on their slate every time the teacher frowned or corrected them or did anything. And they threw down their slates all together. They laughed because they knew it would disrupt things. And they threw spitballs. And they'd even, when the teacher had sent them outside, Lottie said, we decided to be even badder this afternoon. But then Mary came to school, and Mary told us a story, and she told the teacher the story. And she said, and we decided that we were going to be as good as gold this afternoon and see if we were just missing the good in you. So we made marks every time you praised us or smiled at us or thanked us. And there were so many times. No, no, Miss Capron, you're wonderful. It was us being bad. Well, the teacher, she said, oh no, I forgive you. Boys and girls, have you ever had a day like that? Other people come to you and point at one of the people you go to school with and say, they can't do anything right. They're awful. Or have you ever had people whisper about somebody? Or as a group, have you ever, when you've gone to school, went, this isn't a good place to be, but never looked at all the wonderful things that your teachers do to help you, for you? If you look at something looking for the good, for some reason, you don't see the bad. And that's what Jesus wants us to do. And that's what he wants to do for us. He wants to see the good in us. Thank you, boys and girls. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.